The title is Supranational Governance at Stake, that is the governance beyond the nation state. Well, which is the challenge? We see the every big challenge of the humankind, starting with the coronavirus, the infectious disease, but we could mention financial instability, climate change, criminality, terrorism, extreme poverty at global level are transnational challenges, are not national challenges. That's why we need a governance beyond the national state. The first challenge at the beginning of the European Community, European Union, was transforming the continent of wars, World War I, World War II, in the continent of peace. This was the main challenge at the beginning, explaining Jean Monnet, Spaak, Schuman, etc. They were committed to the ideal of peace, and they needed institutions fit to cope with this objective, and that was the idea of having not only a state, but a cooperation among states, a deep cooperation through supranational institutions. Commission, Parliament, Court of Justice are the main supranational institutions. This idea is today challenged by nationalists, populists, and also by the power politics of hard neighbors like Erdogan and Putin. That is the reason why our book explores the way how to survive for the supranational institutions, how to cope with these new internal and external challenges, how to make this governance beyond the state more effective and more legitimate.
In my chapter, I look specifically at the trade policy of the European Union and its integration of investment policies since the Lisbon Treaty. And it hasn't gone without difficulties or growing pains. And the approach of the book allows me to look at the evolution from an initially conservative policy that was at the level of the member states and brought up by the Lisbon Treaty into EU exclusive competences and shared competences for investment to now have a more innovative policy. And the EU has been very proactive and strongly advocating for a new investment court system, for example, both in the EU and internationally. This is really the main focus of this book chapter and also my research as a PhD fellow.
It's very important what she said, because on the one hand she emphasized that trade is an exclusive competence of the European Union, and secondly, that the Parliament has the last word in terms of ratification of the arrangements. And if the Parliament has the final word, that means that the citizens have the final word by their elected representation. That means that the trade policy is submitted to a strong legitimacy constraint, imperative. That is very important for the citizen, for the ordinary citizen. They will have scientific tools in order to help them be confronted with the nationalist, sovereignist, populist tendencies, which are against the European Union legacy, the European Union achievements in terms of trade, but also in terms of area of justice and security, in terms of international cooperation in environment, and so on. We work on the basis of cooperation between different disciplines, and particularly political science and law. Political scientists have very little choice but knowing the treaties as basic background for their theories. And lawyers have to benefit of the political scientist analysis of the background of the law, of the consequence of the law in the society, and so on. This is very important and was successful, the cooperation between legal studies and political studies. The second one is the comparative method. We try to compare the European Union with other forms of governance beyond the state, supranational governance at global level, which is extremely important and which is contested today by the President Donald Trump directly. Finally, we compare also with other regions of the world. European Union is not an isolated case study. We can compare with ASEAN in Southeast Asia, with Mercosur in South America, with the African Union, with other regional organizations, and we discovered that also regional organizations abroad in other continents are addressing the same question, answer the big challenges of the humankind through enhanced cooperation among neighbors.
The book chapter allows me to look at the new investment court system proposed by the EU and its trade agreements and the challenges and contestations that have arisen with it. We were speaking of legitimacy, and it's such an important issue. What the EU has proposed is to render legitimate a mechanism that's highly contested. So this is touched upon in the book chapter, but it's the essence of my research, because in my PhD research, I really compare the new court that's proposed by the EU for its trade agreements to the existing mechanism that is arbitration and ISDS, and the huge legitimacy concerns that have arisen in the controversy, and whether or not it's a solution that's viable and will actually make a difference.
The book had the chance to mobilize both the young scholar and the best generation, older generation of scholars, leading scholar in law, like Jean-Victor Louis Mariandoni, leading scholar in economics, like Professor Woolstock from the London School of Economics, and leading scholar in the studies of the area of security, freedom and justice, like Maris Cremona, professor in the European University in Fiesole. So it's extremely good interplay between different generations, different disciplines.
The book fits really well in the Gemstones framework and research agenda because as you may know, Gemstones stands as an acronym for research on multilateralism in particular. We all have very different and specific research agendas, but there's an overarching concern whereby we're all looking at concerns from the EU and its place within a multilateral world, and how it manages to bring this action forward and not colliding constantly with other concerns and with the international legal order.